All right. Hello, everyone. We are starting. This is a webinar that will discuss the billing and compliance components of telehealth. And we have with us some very important people that are guests to this webinar that will be discussing. They're experts in the area. We have Bob Kowalick and he's director of billing and management services. Penny, I don't know your last name.
It's well, Jeannie should be on. Jeannie Alou. Is Jeannie on?
Jeannie will be on too in a moment, okay. I think. We may also have Mary Dualong. She may be running a little late. But before we actually start discussing the billing aspect, and again, you may have heard me saying these things a gazillion of times, but I think it is extremely, extremely important that I keep repeating these things because it is very, very important at this point in time. So yes, it's all about telehealth. It's fantastic. However, why? Why we are doing that? What is the strategy? What we have in mind as private practice owners when we do this, okay? And here is why we are doing it right now more than ever. Because we want to look at a brighter tomorrow. Here it is, guys. Hands-on Diagnostics, which is one of the companies that Kostas and I have, which is a national franchise. We're in 26 different states. It is a member of IFA, the International Franchise Association. So here are the news from IFA, okay? About it is projected that 20% of the restaurants across the United States will not be able to reopen ever, ever. So 20% of the restaurants in your area will never reopen. You know, I would like to see some similar type of projection from the private practice section of the APTA to look at the possibilities of private practices not being able to reopen if they do not manage the situation right now properly. Why? Here is why. If right now you make X amount of money and all of a sudden you do not, we have coronavirus, you don't apply mitigation strategies and your revenue goes to zero, then your recovery will be very, very slow if you manage to recover. So instead, what we have been suggesting that you guys do and what we have been doing is to implement specific mitigation strategies that will help you instead of going to zero and then building from zero or minus to wherever you were before. Implement mitigation strategies right here, right now, where you are going to be able to recover much faster. So Kostas and myself, we are implementing right now in our organization 5 different mitigation strategies. I talked earlier about that. I'm going to show you the slide right now. Here is what we have been done. Number 1, we are going to apply for the loan because liquidity is king. Cash is king right now. This is a very, very important mitigation strategy. Number 2, we are decreasing our expenses, but strategically decreasing our expenses because as you heard from Bob Kowalick earlier at 1 p.m. Eastern during our daily town hall meeting, you have to be careful what expenses you will decrease because if you decrease expenses that are part of the forgiven category, then the money you're going to get from the PPP will not be, that portion will not be forgiven. but you can negotiate things. And you know, I have here leases and rents, and that does not belong into that category, because leases and rents are actually an item that can be forgiven. So you have to be strategic about how you're going to handle that. Maybe you pay, let's say, at an earlier month at a lower rent, but when it comes to actually paying your after the in origination of the loan, you don't decrease the rents or the leases. Now, number 3, we are doing diagnostic testing, and many of our HUD's partners are doing diagnostic testing, especially outside testing in offices, on physicians' offices that are still open. And this is something that we encourage it, and you can talk to us separately, because hands-on diagnostics has an opportunity right now that everybody can start doing diagnostics just with an initial payment of $5,000. So you can do that. But also we are implementing TelePT. We're implementing telehealth for physical therapy. And we are in an uptrend where we're increasing day after day after day the conversion of office patients into TelePT patients. And yes, despite the fact that Medicare has not yet said PTs are okay for TelePT, we have started scheduling future appointments for regular telehealth appointments for Medicare patients. And I'll elaborate more on that, why. And number 5, we, under specific conditions in our office, we're maintaining our office still open and for as long as possible, okay? And one final slide I'm going to show you before we go into billing is the fact that you want to get a platform, a telehealth platform that is compliant, HIPAA compliant, that is stable, because guys, this is very important. When you are on a platform, you are not the only one who is having a TelePT session. There are other 5,000, 10,000 people, who knows how many, that are doing simultaneously that moment a TelePT session. So you have to be able to have a good, stable platform. The platform has to be easy to use, and also some platforms, the one we are using does, it provides also marketing for your TelePT practice and data, statistical data that you can have. Okay, and that's all I am going to share. And I am going to turn it over to you, Bob, so you can give us the basics of billing for TelePT, telehealth services.
Unmute myself first. So let me just spend a minute first to elaborate a little bit on your message. And conversion or conservation of cash is the most critical issue for any business, right now. So that's where virtual services, fit really in is, and maybe many of you are already doing this, have done it for a long time, but I believe most it's new. And as our clinical visits are being, diminished, it's an opportunity to keep connected to your patients. It's an opportunity for a revenue stream. And it's a changing scenario that is almost changing every day. It's hard to have every answer for every state, for every payer. It's impossible, in fact, because it's so new for so many payers and providers that there's not an absolute 100% definitive answer to every question out there right now. So Jeannie's on with me, and Jeannie is one of my directors, operations directors. She's very knowledgeable about the specifics of billing, for telehealth, TelePT. Let me just create the context here first, and that what we're really talking about is the area of virtual services. Okay, there's three kinds of virtual services. There's telehealth, there's virtual check-ins, and there's e-visits. And so the virtual check-in is E&M codes that aren't really part of the physical therapy sphere at this point. And the difference between an e-visit and telehealth is an e-visit is a kind of encounter that's there for you to do with your already existing patients who, for whatever reason, might not want to or aren't presently coming into the clinic, but you can still stay connected to the patient through an e-visit. An e-visit is a cumulative time encounter over a 7-day period. So you measure, keep track of the amount of time you've spent over a 7-day period, and you're going to bill an e-visit series of encounters over 7 days based on cumulative total of time, one time in a 7-day period. And Jeannie can talk more specifically about the actual coding for that. So it's a different kind of virtual service than telehealth. So you have a patient, the patient says, hey, you know what, I'm not going to be here this week. I would like to, and you guys decide that it could make sense for you to check in with that patient in the use of an e-visit encounter. And there's different rules around whether that's a Medicare patient or a non-Medicare patient. Now, one of the things that Medicare did come out recently and approve and extend to physical therapists is the e-visit. So Medicare does have codes, and there is a reimbursement fee schedule around e-visit. The Medicare codes are G codes. The commercial insurances are different codes. But the e-visit is bundles of time between 5 and 10 minutes, between 11 and 20 minutes, or over 21 minutes, or 21 minutes or greater. So you're going to do this over a 7-day period. Whatever group of time is what you've accumulated over that 7-day period, that's what ends up being billed. Reimbursement's pretty low on it. It starts around $13, goes to $23, goes to $36. So it's not intended to replace clinic-based physical therapy, but it is. I think it's a way to stay connected to the patient, and for Medicare patients especially, who maybe aren't quite so comfortable with and familiar with technology. It's kind of a step that enables you to create an experience with the patient that's a virtual visit that could then lead into a real telehealth visit. And because telehealth, and this might change tomorrow, but as of today, what's been confusing about what's happened in the last couple of days is that Medicare CMS did approve the physical therapy procedure codes 97110, 112, 116, 530, 535, et cetera, for reimbursement, but they didn't extend the provider group that's allowed to do telehealth to physical therapists and occupational therapists. So they've added the codes without adding us, as a provider. And that's, there's a lot of activity going on around correcting that. There's assumptions being made that that's an oversight or a mistake. But the accurate present status of it is, as physical therapists, occupational therapists, we cannot do telehealth as a covered service for Medicare patients. Because it's a non-covered service, you can make an arrangement with your patient to see that patient on a cash basis. So it could be a self-pay type of relationship that otherwise is hard to come by with a Medicare patient, because if you're enrolled with Medicare as a provider, you can't do any cash-based services because most of what you do as a physical therapist in a clinic is a covered service. So good, bad, otherwise, not sure, but the present status of it is that you can do telehealth with a Medicare patient for cash. Now, it's important that you, when you're dealing with Medicare patients, and this is probably something Mary would be providing some more detail on, is how that encounter happens. You can't outright promote services to Medicare patients, so you have to have a proper way of going about establishing a need for that, and I'm sure that's something that she'll cover. Now, when you go off into the non-Medicare world,
Bob, 1 second, if you don't mind, because there are a few questions
okay.
On Medicare e-visit specifically.
Sure.
Some people have been told that the e-visit has to be done on a patient portal or encrypted email, but could not be done via phone.
So there's a lot of confusion around this, and there's a lack of clarity, and the fact that we're in a national public health disaster condition, the normal intended use of virtual services through encrypted, secure, HIPAA compliant portals is not in effect today. And so you have to look at, how you take advantage of the opportunity in a kind of real-time situation to begin experimenting with these things that might be new to your practice, but always keep an eye on the long-term picture and make decisions about how you could be doing this and with the intention of setting yourself up for a more permanent type solution that would then be allowable once these somewhat lessened, rules and as they look at this with more flexibility today, that's not going to always be the case. So you don't want to put yourself into a situation where it's going to be difficult for you to then continue to do this as soon as they say, now you need to have this done in a HIPAA compliant manner. So, but the e-visit, I do believe the intent of the e-visit is to have an audio and visual component of your interaction, not just a phone call or a text message or an email. That's really what virtual check-ins are. Those are specifically described as, any kind of digital communication. So, but whether or not it really has to be through a patient portal, right now, that is not the case for either telehealth or e-visits.
And how about the fact that the e-visit has to be initiated by the patient? How the patient can initiate that e-visit?
Yeah. So this is also a little bit of a you say, well, what's the practical application here? You have a patient, you have an established relationship. You have a condition now where maybe the patient's no longer comfortable coming into your clinic. Maybe your clinic's not open. And so you can have a discussion with the patient about their options, right? And make them aware. You've already got an established relationship. You're not advertising to the world that you're offering this service to Medicare patients that you've never had an encounter with. You're free to create the awareness in the patient that this option exists because of the condition that things are in. And then you guys can decide together if this would apply to that patient. It is important that if you use the e-visit, that you document the fact that you did discuss the application for it, that the patient was interested in obtaining or having an encounter through a virtual service, and that you do document the result of that encounter, that you do show what kind of clinical decision-making logic was used and what conclusions were arrived at. And as long as you're acting in good faith right now, that there isn't any intention of fraud and abuse, you don't have to worry about the fine nuances of what's technically absolutely correct because of the situation that we're in.
Good, very good. Somebody says that she just spoke with someone in Medicare and was told that PT is now covered for telehealth, but will be reimbursed at a lower rate, about a third less than the usual reimbursement rates. We have no indication about that. As we mentioned at the 1 p.m. town hall, I mentioned my communication directly with the APTA and with Justin Elliott from APTA, who specifically told us that a meeting is going to be arranged between CMS, APTA, AOTA, and speech, and we have to continue putting pressure there because nothing has been decided at this point.
Yeah, it's very difficult to take, unless you are reading it from a CMS source. I wouldn't believe just about anything.
Even CMS screwed it up a couple of days ago.
Yeah, what they did is, right, they have a 221-page document that on the bottom of page 35 clarified that we still weren't approved. So unless you love spending your time reading 221 pages of, CMS, content, then it's easy. It's an easy thing to miss.
There's another question that says, initial CMS on eVisit it could be done by phone using term asynchronous. Is that not true?
I think, again, you're going to have a short-term scenario as long as this condition exists where there's going to be flexibility in the kinds of platforms that are used. But I don't believe that the long-term intention is to be able to do this through non-secure methods. And what it kind of comes down to is whether or not there's some type of visual need for the type of clinical decision-making that's being done through the encounter. So it's important just to distinguish an eVisit is a thing to itself. The commercial world has eVisits for PT. That's a 98960. Jeannie will go over the codes. The Medicare codes G0 or G206123. But again, for an established patient, you're not doing initial evaluations with an eVisit. You're not doing an eVisit with a patient you've never seen. You're continuing some kind of clinical decision-making logic through a digital communication on an already existing patient. That's an eVisit. So if we could maybe get Jeannie in on to talk specifically about the coding around.
And Bob, if you don't mind, Bob, as far as I know, it doesn't have to be face-to-face. You don't need a video for this interaction. It can be just a phone conversation, of course, initiated by the patient.
Yeah, okay.
So
can Jeannie chime in?
Is Jeannie there? Or no? Well, anyway, maybe you contact her real quick. But meanwhile, because in the webinar right now we have several HUDs partners, I want to add something to what I said originally, so that I am mentioning that I have been asked to. So I mentioned to you guys before the 5 mitigation strategies, and one of the mitigation strategies I mentioned was for you to get into diagnostics and to do your own diagnostics both in-house and outside, for outside sources. But In the event you are not ready to take up on something like that right now, very easily you can do this. You can go to any a browser, type www.findbestpt.com. It will take you to this HUD's website. I'm going to show it to you right now. Is the site showing? Am I sharing it or no? I'm not, right? I'm going to share it right now. There you go. You can get to this site if you type findbestpt.com, or you can type emgtestnearme.com. And if you go down here, you can plug in the zip code of your practice, or you can check by state, and it will give you all the HUD's partners in around the country. We are in 26 different states, and you can contact one of the HUD's partners who then they can come to your office, or they can go to your referral sources and perform these services on your behalf, okay? We have lots of trained people, over 100 and something people in 26 different states. So you can get some help in that area. So you can go to emgtestnearme.com or to findbestpt.com. Okay, good. So we have Jeannie now. Let's talk to Jeannie. Hi, Jeannie. You can unmute. I am trying to unmute you, but you have to unmute yourself.
Can you hear me now?
Challengingly, but try again.
Hello?
Okay. Yeah.
I'm unmuted. Can you
Yes.
hear me now?
We can hear a little bit better. Yes, go ahead.
Okay. I was saying I was listening the whole time. Unfortunately, I was just on my phone because I couldn't get an internet connection. So are you able to hear me now? I'm hearing like an echo.
We can hear you.
Okay, good. Good. Anyway, I wanted to just bring to everybody's attention that nobody really knows what's going on right now. I personally called 3 insurance companies this afternoon, sat on hold most of the afternoon, and every representative that I spoke with had no answers for me. I did end up emailing the PHP rep. I was told 2 different things by Medicare Plus Blue. One representative told me they were going to be following Medicare guidelines, and the other one said, no, we're a Blue Cross product, we'll be following Blue Cross guidelines. So that's why it's really important to call and verify the benefits on every one of your patients. You have that way you have an actual ID number for them to look up, document your call, and the most important thing I think is to look at your mail every day to see how these claims are being processed, so you can make corrections right away instead of continuing to submit something because somebody gave you bad information. As Bob said, Medicare at this point is only covering the e-visits, and from what I'm reading, you are not to use place of service 02. You're used to use 11 or 12, and they do not want you to use GP or not GT or 95 modifier. The other carriers that are actually covering physical therapy CPT codes are telling you to use place of service 02. I found it interesting that United Healthcare, on their approved list of CPT codes for physical therapists, approved 97530, but not 97140. And for Cigna, they're only giving you an avail code and 97110. That's the only codes you can use.
I think that most likely that for the private insurance carriers, the 97110 is kind of the code that will be used probably the most. And several of them, 97112, they will cover also, or otherwise multiple units of 97110. Go ahead.
Let's just make sure that we're clear too on that. When we start talking about the actual 97 procedure codes, we're talking about the billing related to telehealth. So we kind of jump to telehealth from eVisit. Let's finish coding conversation around eVisit, and then we'll move on to onto telehealth. Is there anything else you want to add on eVisit coding, Jeannie?
Well, it's 3 codes, as Bob mentioned: G2061, G2062, and G2063. 61 is for an accumulation of 5 to 10 minutes over a 7-day period, and that reimburses $13.17. 62 is for 11 to 20 minutes, and that reimburses $23.24. And 63 is for over 21 minutes. So anything over 21 minutes is capped off at $35.98.
Okay. And then the commercial counterparts, I pulled this up. Are we seeing my my screen?
You have to share your screen if you want to show it.
Yeah, I did a share. I don't know if
try again.
Oh,
Green button.
Yeah.
There you go.
Okay.
Perfect.
Let me just show real quick this. So here's a visual on what Jeannie just said. G206123 for Medicare, 7-day period, 5 to 10, 11 to 20, right? And then that's your reimbursement levels. And then when we get to the commercial side, we're at 98970, 98971, and 98972 are the commercial counterparts to those 3 G codes.
I haven't encountered one that's telling you to use those codes yet, but that doesn't mean you won't.
Yeah.
If you only cover e-visits.
All right, so we want to go to telehealth now. Any other questions on e-visits coming up?
I have seen a couple more questions. Let me just get them real quick. Let me see here. So yeah, the question is again, if both audio and video is required for the e-visit.
Yeah, I don't think there's a definitive absolute answer now. I do believe that the nature of the encounter enables itself for non-video encounters and audio communications only. But when we do get into telehealth, that is not true. So for the e-visit, it's a simpler encounter. It's less time. There's less to be accomplished. So it's not the same kind of platforms that are needed for telehealth.
One more thing, Lisa, Mona Lisa Perez, I know the document that you are sharing right now. We're very aware of this document, but at that same time that this document was released, there was also another document released of 200 and something pages, where on page 35 at the bottom of it, there was a distinction that despite the fact we are something like, and it's not quotes now, it's my words, it said that despite the fact we are approving physical therapy codes, despite the fact that we are approving physical therapy, we don't want the physical therapy to be done by physical therapists. We'll pay for physical therapy done by physicians, nurse practitioners, or whatever, other healthcare providers, but not physical therapists. That is what essentially they said, okay? So this is what we're trying to change right now. This is what APTA is trying to change right now. And there was one more question. Can they do the e-visit all 21, 22 minutes in one session.
I have not read anything that says they can't. The only restriction I've come across is you can only report the codes once within a 7-day period.
Okay. Okay. Good. So I guess that's totally fine then. And did we answer the question if you can do multiple e-visits, multiple 7-day periods? Did we answer that yet? Because that was asked too.
Again, I haven't seen anything restricting how many times you can bill that.
Okay. E-visit location, 11 or 12 or 2?
11 or 12.
11 or 12, okay. And any modifier?
No, just the GP.
Just
And
the GP.
That changed. I mean, at first they told you to use the catastrophic modifier. That's been rescinded. So just your GP with 11 or 12.
Okay, guys, please don't ask in this meeting questions about the PPP loan. Come tomorrow at 1 o'clock. We'll talk again about that.
I could talk about that in my sleep now.
It's unbelievable. No, I understand. People worry. People worry. This is very important. So we'll talk about again about general issues tomorrow at 1 p.m. in the town hall meeting. Okay, come back to that. Now we'll talk only about telehealth and reimbursement. That's the point of this.
We will give you a little opportunity to connect on that at the end of this call, just to let you know that we do have some tools available to you for that.
Good,
so
good.
We can explain that more tomorrow too.
They say patients whose POC is nearing expiration and you want to keep them active in order to be able to utilize telehealth when Medicare gets on board. Can you do that? I guess.
Well, Jeannie can talk about ABN and ABN use and whether or not ABN should be used, with this kinds of stuff for Medicare patients. But because it's not a covered service, if we're talking telehealth, you can do whatever you need to do as long as it's an agreement between you and the patient. So if you're providing a service the patient wants to compensate you for, and it's telehealth, not e-visit. You can't do an e-visit for cash, but you can do telehealth visits for cash. So that scenario doesn't really apply to Medicare.
However, if Medicare does come back and approve telehealth for physical therapists, it's now a covered service. So you would have to have an ABN on file in order to bill your patient. So it sounds like that is going to happen. And if you think you're still going to be treating your patient within that time frame, I would definitely get the plan of care extended. And if you're unable to, have your patient sign an ABN letting them know you're not going to be able to bill it to Medicare if your doctor doesn't give you an update to plan of care.
Jeannie, can you just take a second to explain the ABN normal application? And then
you normally don't need an ABN. ABN is Advanced Beneficiary Notice, and that puts the patient on notice that they are going to be responsible for the charges so that there are no surprises to the patients. Normally, you don't need that for a non-covered service.
Yeah, so it's used when a covered service expires or you reach a limit on it, but it's going to continue. So it allows you the opportunity to basically go into a non-benefit situation with your patient. When it comes to the virtual services or a non-covered service like telehealth, there's no harm in having an ABN.
No, it's actually a good idea to have
it's
one.
probably a good backup plan to have that, regardless. And I do believe that, the situation with Medicare probably is going to change, and it's going to change at a moment's notice. The only question on it is to whether or not it's requires a technical correction of the law, as opposed to a guidance change. And those are different procedural scenarios that need to happen legislatively. So if, because the written law as it stands right now does not include PTs and OTs as approved telehealth providers, they will probably need what's called a technical correction and a written change in that before it's totally official.
From a business management point of view, I'll tell you, and again, this is, each of you will do whatever you guys think is right for your practice, but the direction that Kostas and I gave, I think yesterday or the day before yesterday to our staff, is to start scheduling Medicare patients for telehealth visits, despite the fact we are not going to bill for those right now. So we believe that telehealth visits, when they get approved for physical therapy, based on what was released a couple of days ago in general for telehealth, we believe that will be retroactively approved. Again, this is, you have to get your own information, but this is basically the interpretation that we have on that. And also, we're thinking that the longer we wait to have some sort of intervention with the patient, the bigger the attrition rate will be for these patients. So even if we provide a couple of sessions free of charge to those patients, that would be still okay for us at least. So in terms of a strategy, we have started scheduling these patients. Bob, do you see anything wrong with that, with what I'm saying right now, to start scheduling patients before the determination is made? Is there anything legally, I'm not talking about money-wise, but anything legally?
Well, you're talking for telehealth?
Yeah.
And Medicare, right? Yeah, no, because it's not a covered service. Right now, you are literally free to go about and establish any kind of self-pay cash-based relationship with your patients around telehealth if they're Medicare, because it is not a covered service. But you need to be paying attention to the change. And obviously, there's a lot of people in the industry now that are very focused on this. And I'm sure as soon as that changes, it will be all over every possible communication path that it exists now will have it. Just verify, right? Because what happened yesterday was everyone put out PT's now approved for, you know, telehealth, and it was the PT procedure codes, but not PTs as providers. And even I posted or commented on something during a town hall that I was talking about and mentioned that, you know, this was now approved and it wasn't. So
yeah.
Just verify, look for the actual, what I do now is I ask for the link to the actual resource that gives me the actual written communication by the authority that controls the decision.
By the way, I want to say that when it comes to Medicare, we don't charge our patients, but we feel kind of obligated that if you have a total knee replacement that happened 3 weeks ago and now they can't go out from their house because of the coronavirus, at least the least we can do is to offer them some help by taking that initiative and making that phone call, helping the patient, and again, hopefully we're going to get paid, but we're not going to charge them. Again, our population, our public, it's not the public that can afford the $50, $60, $70 per treatment. So it can be pro bono, or hopefully Medicare can pay us retroactively.
And thank you, Costa. And as I'm going to read a couple of more questions for us to answer, I'm going to also launch a poll so I can get a census as to who are the people who are attending this. Can you guys tell me if the poll is shows right now? Yeah, it shows because
yes, it does.
Right? Okay, good. So I'm going to ask the question as I have the poll up there. It says, when you are talking about the patient signing an ABN, is that for all Medicare patients that might be using the telehealth? And this is if or after CMS approves physical therapists. So do you have to do it for all patients?
You don't, so because telehealth is not a covered service right now, you do not need an ABN with a Medicare patient, not a covered service for Medicare. So you don't need the ABN. So the ABN is normally used if you have a covered service and you've now exceeded the benefit level and you need the ABN that shows that the patient's now going to be responsible. But there's no harm in having an ABN for a Medicare patient that you're doing telehealth with on a cash basis. And if it does become approved, you know, an allowed service, covered service, then we're into the same kind of scenario that an ABN would apply under any other scenario in PT or OT.
Thank you. I shared also the results we got from the poll. Definitely everybody has been affected by this devastation. Medicare also told some people to wait to submit e-visit claims until after this weekend because they are doing, they say, a major upload of all the new codes and that.
It doesn't surprise me. It does take, they're always backlogged on updating their systems every time a new procedure's rolled out. I haven't read that anywhere, but
and it is new.
They're still trying to correct their last mistake with billing the avails with the 97140s and 530s. So
another thing, and I'm going to share it here. I'm going to show it to you on a slide. Another thing that it's very important, and we experienced it in our practice, is when you call an insurance company to find out if they cover it, make sure that you mention, oops, that's not good. Make sure that you mention all different types of statements about telehealth. Some people will get it as telehealth, some TelePT, some telerehab, and even ask to speak to a supervisor. I can't tell you how many times we called an insurance company, we asked them about that, and then they said, no, it's not covered. And then when we said, okay, can we speak to a supervisor? The supervisor confirmed that it is a covered service. And then what we did is we asked for the actual policy. Where is it written? So, so then you can create a grid with all of the insurance companies. And if they cover, yes or no, where in the policy is that? And then create something, okay, beautiful. This is exactly what you need to do. This is what you need to be using, and these are the right questions to ask for every single insurance company. Is there a way for people to be able to get a hold of this, Bob? I mean, you're sharing it there.
Yeah, so we're using this with our clients. Happy to share this, but whatever's the easiest way to get it out to everybody. I mean, they can, we can give it, you know, to you. You can post it somewhere.
Yeah, if you give it to me, what we're gonna do, guys, you know that all of these webinars and other information, we have it at the website savephysicaltherapy.com. If you go to that website, we will get this from Bob and we are going to post it there. Also, we will be able to share with you in that site. We'll put a little link to direct you to Bob's special link for the PPP calculations, which we are going to discuss towards the end just quickly. But we also have Mary Duolong, who has just joined. Mary, hello. How are you? We can see her microphone, but I cannot hear her. Anyway, Mary, if you can hear me, at any moment you are able to get your microphone working, let us know so we can have you answer some questions. When it comes to regular telehealth visits, when it comes to workers' compensation and no-fault insurance, what is the general consensus about that, and what do people need to do to make sure that they are covered by those insurances?
Anyone? Jeannie, do you want to say what you know about? I think it's the short answer is going to be it's all over the map, and you need to do the verification with each and every payer.
Yeah.
I don't think we can hear you.
Well, MedRisk did put something out there saying they would cover it, but for any other workers, no, I'm not muted.
No, you're not muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you. We can hear you.
Let me turn my volume all the way up. Is that better?
We can hear you. Yes.
MedRisk did put them. Okay.
Go ahead.
I was saying that MedRisk did put some information out there saying that they would cover telehealth visits. As far as the other work comp carriers, you should have a relationship with the adjuster handling that patient's case. And I would get it right from the adjuster because they have pull. They can authorize things for their patients if they need it. I would document the call with the adjuster and ask if they need a return call after so many visits, and just keep getting authorization from them.
Good. We're also getting reports that South Carolina Workers' Comp does approve virtual visits. Also, One Call does approve virtual visits. And we got confirmation from several carriers in New York State that they will cover telehealth for physical therapists under this code here, evaluation and management code 99441. We have not been able to confirm the exact amount of reimbursement for that, but that is the code that we were able to confirm that they will pay in New York. So that would be something for you guys to check with your individual carriers.
I think there's a lot of pressure to adopt, right, the virtual services across the board, state levels, national levels. Aetna, Cigna, UHC, they're all coming on board in various versions of what they're approving, and sometimes they limit the codes or whatever, but there's a lot of pressure to get this out, to make it available, pretty much across the board. And it's going to be changing day after day after day.
And I would like to make like a general comment about telehealth in general, and the reason that we navigated towards the platform that we did. Okay, you implement telehealth. You're going to put your existing patients on telehealth, right? But the point is, those patients that you already have, in a few weeks from now, they'll be discharged. You really need to keep working on your marketing activities to bring in more new patients in there, not just the existing ones you have. So that's why next Wednesday, and I'm going to put the link for you to that, next Wednesday, we are doing a webinar again on the marketing of telehealth, the marketing of TelePT, and we'll give you some suggestions and some ideas. We have some good speakers on that. We're going to have at least 3 speakers and possibly a 4th one. We're going to have Kurt Matiola from Breakthrough. We're going to have Neil Trickett from Practice Promotions. We're going to have Tim Mantis from Survival Strategies, who has also an incredible program, a group that meets twice a week with owners that exchange ideas. And I don't know if Tim is a part of this webinar, but if he is, Tim, please put in the website where you have created on Facebook. Another thing, since we're talking about telehealth, I would like to tell you about, guys, is the following. And this is the first time we're making this announcement. Our organization, our Hands-On Diagnostics, and the partners of HUDs in 26 different states, we have created at this point PT for Heroes. PT for Heroes is an organization that aims to offer telehealth physical therapy services to the people who are in the front lines, to doctors and nurses and health practitioners, people who are in the ERs. They're breaking their backs, their necks, their joints every single day. And these people could need some help. We have partnered also with a Better PT, who will provide the free platform for telehealth services for these healthcare providers in the front lines. We're going to make a major PR effort to push this across the country. And if you would like to participate in this effort, go to ptforheroes.com and put in your information here. We will contact you with details, and we are going to have a referral website where when someone requests to have a free TelePT session, we will be forwarding this to you so that you can be part of a movement of helping people out there to help others. Okay, so
there's a question to put about the differentiation between eVisit and telehealth again. Do we want to cover that real quick?
Sure.
I'm going to put my screen back up real quick. And you know, I also saw a question in here about, is this, you know, we can share this slide deck. Here's what telehealth really is, just a general description of it. It is an interactive telecommunications platform that has real-time audio and visual. And when you're doing telehealth, there should be a similar outcome to what you're doing in the clinic for the same kinds of procedure codes that are being used. You can see a new patient through telehealth, which is not something that you do with eVisit. So, and we are billing specific procedure codes with telehealth, and not, you know, not some other scenario like we do with eVisits. But for Medicare, we're not approved yet, so you can do this for cash. And when you are billing telehealth to other payers other than Medicare who do allow this, it is place of service 02 in the coding. E-visit, it's kind of similar to a virtual check-in in that it's a live interaction between a patient, whereas see, virtual check-ins is kind of middle thing that we don't do either. So you could do an email, and that would be a virtual check-in. So an e-visit is still considered and intended to be a live interaction, whereas email is not, text messaging is not. Text messaging could be, I guess. But you're having some kind of real-time communication. It just doesn't necessarily need to be through a visual platform as well. And traditionally they are patient portal based, but right now it's not always, doesn't always need to be patient portal based. And PT and OT has been recently provided, e-visit authorization, and that's why they're still a little behind the curve on getting all this figured out for paying for it. It is supposed to be initiated by the patient, but we discussed that how you're still, because you have an active relationship with the patient, totally within your right to create an awareness of the option once the condition becomes apparent that the in-clinic visit might not be appropriate or continued. So that's the basic difference there. When we get back to telehealth, you start talking about platforms, and there are lots of platforms. There are non-traditional telehealth platforms that are being used that are not traditionally HIPAA compliant. You have to be careful with that. The condition, and I wish Mary was on because she can really speak about these things in great detail. But the bottom line assessment or decision is going to be made around whether or not you're acting in good faith and that there really is no fraud and abuse going on. And as long as that's true, then if you want to use FaceTime or Skype or something like that, you can use it. But that's not a long-term telehealth virtual services platform decision for your practice. There are some common ones that we're seeing being adopted pretty regularly now, and I think you guys are even offering some platform solutions. So there's different solutions. In fact, this is a Y. So Doxy.me is free. Blue Jay Health and ClockTree are some common ones that we're seeing. Those are kind of three different price points. Doxy's very cheap, Blue Jay's in the middle, ClockTree's a little bit more expensive. There are HIPAA compliant versions of Zoom meetings. There's a healthcare version of Zoom. It's pretty expensive.
Too expensive. Minimum like $2,000 a month.
Yes, you have to have at least 10 licenses, which are $200 a month each. So not a great option. So, but public-facing platforms are not going to be allowed now or ever. So Facebook Live, that kind of thing. So just know that that's there's some moving targets these days around what kind of platforms are okay and what may not be okay in the big picture. Hope that was a little bit helpful there.
Also, since some people are asking me about certification course on telehealth and training, I want to show you that this is our company. So yes, we do have a financial interest on this, but it's a pretty good program, pretty good course. It's a telehealth certification course that teaches you all the basics, and these are the contents of it. What is telehealth? Physical therapy and informed consent, patient appropriateness, performing a remote patient exam, when to consider an in-person follow-up, treating virtually. There are examples here for different pathologies, and it teaches you also the specific special tests that you can do for every joint in the body, and case studies also, okay? So this is a pretty comprehensive program that you can take,
and that kind of thing is great because there's really logistical problems that you need to work through, and you know, you guys have that that process in place and the infrastructure in place for delivering educational content, information, and all of that. And so it's, you know, it's the little pieces, moving parts that, you know, when you've never done this before, that you need to figure out. And so working through platforms like that already have thought through those kinds of things is just going to shorten your learning curve on getting this stuff in place.
And I would like to make also another comment, and I'm going to launch a quick poll for you guys to fill out real quick, if you like. So here is the point. There is the question. Okay, should I go ahead and use a platform? Hold on one second, guys. I'm having Mary do along on the phone. Hi, Mary. I'm in the middle of the webinar, but tell me. What? Yes, my time at 6. Okay, it's all right. Don't worry. Do you have the link to get in? Oh boy, I'm gonna send you right now an invite, okay? I'm gonna send you an invitation right now. All right, okay, all right, thanks. We'll have, let me see if I can get an invitation to Mary. Okay, gosh. Bob, do you have the invitation? Costa, do you have the invitation?
I forward the one that I received, forward that to Mary.
Yeah.
I'll get one. Go ahead.
Yeah, both of you just forward to Mary. Okay. Oh, she's going to the town hall meeting. That's the problem. She's going to, there are so many meetings that she is going to the wrong meeting. But anyway, I will try to get her invited. It's worthwhile to listen to Mary. She is great on compliance issues, and that is really her forte. And let me see, invite, copy URL. All right, sorry about that. Maybe Kostas, you can be talking so people don't just sit like this, or
I can sing too, guys. Just tell me, what do you want to do? I can dance, you know, I can go back there. But now, one of the things that therapists are not ready for, of course, it is to prep themselves, not on how to handle the telemedicine, but in terms of paperwork. There is a lot of paperwork that you have to really start including that uses the telemedicine or TelePT or telehealth, whatever you want to call it, language in there so you can protect yourself going forward. And again, this is a gray area. Even in our office, we're still trying to figure out how to change all these intake forms so we can protect ourselves. There is this possibility that you do something and then all of a sudden the patient falls down. What do? You know, there are some details that we're still looking into how to handle that. And again, the minute we have more information, we'll let you know.
Yeah, and let me just say, there are some great questions I see here about HIPAA Business Associate Agreement, about consent and all that. And I would love when Mary comes online to answer these questions. But those of you who are asking how to be part of the daily town hall meetings, you can go to www.savephysicaltherapy.com and you can just register there for the town hall meetings. And if you go to past webinars, You can literally, guys, see any past webinar we've had, any past town hall meeting. We put titles on them so you know exactly what that town hall meeting talked about. If those of you who are applying for the PPP loan, you should go to the town hall meeting that we did today at 1 o'clock. It was like 45 minutes. And I mean, Bob answered like so many questions. And Bob, why don't you mention about the site for people to go to for the link?
Yeah. So what needs to happen here in pretty short order, right, is these CARES Act loans are going to become available, and banks are going to start the approval process probably on Friday of this week.
So sorry.
So it's a, you know, there's, I don't want to create a panic or anything, but the question is, how long will $349 billion last across companies that are going to be applying? So you need to get your information in order so that you can, you know, be participating in what the government is doing. I just want to suggest that it's more important than just having a quick, easy calculation on what your loan amount would be. As a business owner, you really do have to understand how this impacts your cash flow, and at what point in the future you may need another influx of funds. There's many moving parts. So what we've done is create a Google form that is a survey that asks you every question that you need to have an answer to in order to not only to answer these questions: what loan amount am I qualified for or eligible for? What kind of spend am I approved for? How does that spend translate into forgiveness on the loan? What my forgivable amount is likely to be? And how does that, combined with your current cash position, your projection on change in the volume of work that your practice is going to be doing over the remainder of the year, based on your assumptions and data inputs around your revenue levels, your expense levels, your payroll levels, your FTEs. It's one form that asks every question that gets you to the ability to understand how this is going to impact your business on a cash flow basis. And what we're doing is we're offering, it's free. You send me an email, I will send you an invite to the form. Demi's already filled out the form. If you have your data together, you're talking about a 5-minute time investment. I also created a video after going through this with a few select practices earlier today. I created a video that explains the process of completing the form, so that's totally clear. Once your form is finished and you submit, we immediately get that, and we will take all of your data points and put them into a pretty complicated Excel workbook that's been created to do calculations around all of these variables, and then give you a financial based assessment with the calculations and what the bottom line of all of that information really means, so that you can now go and meet with your advisors and think strategically about, you know, how much of this loan, you know, should you take, and what kind of impact will it have, and at what point in the future might you need, you know, some additional help, and it answers all of that for you, and we built it in a way that allows us to turn it around pretty quickly. So all you need to do is I need you to send me an email, because I have to connect you to the form. And once I have you connected to the form and the video explanation, it's a pretty simple process from there.
Awesome. So Bob, go ahead and post this there, and I'm gonna jump to Mary right now. Mary, I have introduced you already, so people are anxiously anticipating your input. So I'm going to jump into some questions right away.
Sure.
Does a patient need to initiate a telehealth visit, and do we need a consent signed by the patient?
Okay, so you want the actual answer or what the government's saying? So basically, what they have said, because of the 1135 waivers, is they're, one, looking the other direction, and don't intend to sanction you for certain things that under normal circumstances they would. So to answer the first question is, the telehealth require the patient to
Hello? I think something happened with Mary. It froze. Okay. Can you guys hear me? Are the panelists there? Okay.
I can hear you.
Okay.
Bob, can you hear us?
Yes, yeah, I'm still here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, we have a little bit of disturbance because one of the faculty of HUDs, they are trying to start the clinical weekly webinar we have. So I just told him to not log to log in yet. Mary, do we have you there still? Anyway, the bottom line is that although there is no requirement right now to actually fill out a consent, some of these regulations are a little bit relaxed. It is important for you to fill out a consent or document that you have a consent. What happens with the platform that we are using, we are going ahead. We're going ahead and we are
Can you hear me now?
Yes, perfect, Mary, go ahead. I was just saying that the platform we are using, we are obtaining the consent right away from the patient on the screen. They just click a button and that's it. The consent is done. It's through our platform.
And that is very good. So I'll roll back to the questions that I was answering when y'all couldn't hear me. I apologize. The government's saying they're looking the other way. If the patient didn't initiate the request, they're saying it's an educational thing. The patients need to understand telehealth is available. So there would not be any sanctioning if indeed you initiated it through education of the availability. And I truly believe that's true, because with the new wave of waivers, they said yesterday they're even using or allowing physicians and other practitioners to use the phone. We don't know if the other practitioner applies to us since we're not in telehealth, but anyway, that's what it said the day before yesterday. Regarding the consent, yes, you should always have a consent, but this is another thing that has not been addressed by the government. They addressed the business associate agreement when you're working with your different platforms, but they said if you didn't have that signed, they weren't going to go chase you down and sanction you. So I would say the safest thing to do is exactly what Demi said. If you have a consent, let them see it on the screen, they push the button, and off you go. The one caveat is states do have different requirements for consents. And there are 13, I think, states that don't have, they're silent, but the rest of them do have requirements for consent. And Demi, I can get you that list. People can just click on their state and it'll tell you what their requirements are.
Great. That would be awesome if you can provide that to us. And what we're going to do is we're going to put it on the website where we save all of these webinars. We're going to put it on savephysicaltherapy.com. We'll put the form that Bob will give and your form and any other materials, Mary and Bob, that you guys would like to share. We are going to post them on the site, savephysicaltherapy.com, and with your emails also and website information so that people can be able to reach you directly.
Sure. Did
And
you have any
Bob,
more questions?
Actually, Bob, some participants are asking for your email address, so please post your email, Bob. Sorry, Mary, go ahead.
That's okay. Were there other questions? And is there time to answer them?
I would say, Mary, because we only have another 5 minutes before we start on our clinical rounds meeting starts.
Yeah.
Just share anything you like, anything, what is important, what people should be paying attention to right now.
Well, right now, I will tell you from a protection perspective, as of yesterday, CDC changed their recommendations. They are recommending that providers do have masks on when they are treating patients. They are recommending the public wears masks when they get out and go to the grocery store, the bank, or whatever. So that's very important for people to understand. And I think the reason they're opening this up is because people are making the cloth mask, not surgical mask and not the N95 mask. They're making the cloth mask available. In fact, the New York Times even has directions on how to make your own mask. It does have to be 100% cotton. So I think that's important from that perspective. There's a couple of things that are contradictory that came out yesterday in Medicare's Learning Network, and it kind of tweaked what place of service and what modifiers should be used. So we're doing a little work on that. We'll get that to you as well. Other than that, there's so much, I don't even know where to start.
Quick question, Mary, on that, on the masks. Do the masks have to be N95s or they can be any type of mask?
No, they don't want non-first responders wearing the N95s. They still do not have enough. So they said they want the cloth, all cotton mask. There's companies that you can order those from, and they also, as I said, have a directions on how to make your own.
Mary, if you happen to be someone who already has an N95 mask and you're a PT provider, should you wear that instead of one of these other cloth masks?
Well, I've been wearing one, and I'm not a clinician, but I had it because we painted the house. So I'm wearing what I had, but we don't have enough to, rotate them or anything. But if you have it, I would tell you, don't keep changing them out. So if you have 20, let everybody have one, and then the rest should go to the first responders.
Yeah. Is there any known way of making an N95 mask last you longer? Is there a way to
yes,
sterilize
to
it,
put
like spray a little
cloth over
Lysol on the inside or any of that kind of stuff?
Well, you can certainly, you could spray them, but I don't think that's a good idea, really. But you could put cloth over it, and that's what one of the doctors from who's on the East Coast, he was saying that he puts cloth over his N95, and he washes it every night. He disinfects it every night.
This is what our staff do. Some of our staff, they have this mask and they put like a regular on top of this. So they have two masks at the same time, which is exactly what Mary said. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And that certainly will protect them. That's pretty heavy duty. The N95 is not a comfortable mask to wear. And then you add extra to that, breathing becomes a problem. But, we've got to do what we've got to do. And they are saying for sure, they're not telling people that this is going to protect you from the virus necessarily, but it should retard the sprays of droplets getting, into your mouth or your nose. And it is supposed to cover your nose. And everything I see on TV, you've got a lot of people with them just under their nose and over their mouth. So not a good idea. You want to at least have it over your nose and your mouth. If there are questions that are there, I'll be glad to answer those if you in writing. I'll just email them the answers to you, Demi, and we can post them or whatever.
Absolutely. So, okay, guys, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Remember, go to savephysicaltherapy.com and register for next week's marketing of telehealth meeting, and join us in our daily 1 p.m. Town hall meetings. We are doing them even during the weekend. Okay, we're there for you, and we'll be there for as long as you need it and for as long as you are there. Mary, thank you very much. Bob, thank you very much.
I'm so sorry.
Jeannie and Penny, thank you all so much. It's been amazing, and I'm sure we'll have to do more of this because people really request lots of information. So thank you all, and have a good night.
Thank you all.
And Demi, send me the questions. I don't know how to get them out of the webinar chat.
We'll get them. We'll get them to you.
Sounds great.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Bye.
Be safe.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Night.